That smells good. Okay, fine, but we gotta do this quick, right here against the wall.
Summary of today's episode: Stewie takes drastic measures after thinking he's been diagnosed with an advanced stage of an imaginary disease. Meanwhile, Peter falls in love with Bonnie's cooking. The episode starts with a festive theme because it was Brian's birthday. Brian reads the banner and realizes his name was forgotten. Peter explains he forgot to mention his name at the party store. Soon after, the doorbell rings at Peter's house, and Quagmire, Joe, and Kevin show up. Quagmire is annoyed and thinks it's ridiculous for Peter to put so much effort into something his dog can't understand. Joe approaches Brian and offers a branch as a birthday present. Brian tries to take the branch to the kitchen, but can't. Cleveland arrives and gives Brian a card saying it had the message, "Too much sex ruins your eyesight," and wishes him a happy birthday.
Also says, love Aunt Judy and Uncle Bob.
A joke that good doesn't celebrate just one birthday.
Now Stewie, with messy hair, comes into the living room and sees all these people in his house. He complains that no one woke him up before the party started, saying he would have spent the night watching a bad reality show. When Brian blows out the candles, the crowd around him applauds. Peter starts giving a speech. In the middle of the speech, Peter mentions that Brian can't even bury a bone without taking Viagra, among other insulting things. At school, Stewie is playing with his classmates, handing out snacks. While doing this, a girl secretly tells Stewie she has lice. He asks why she's telling him, and she explains that while they were playing with Play-Doh, she might have passed the lice to him. She recommends Stewie get checked for lice. Stewie feels outraged, thinking he's been tricked. Later, Peter rings Joe's doorbell and is greeted by Bonnie, Joe's wife. Peter asks if Joe is home, and she says he's in Tokaya. When Joe and Bonnie appear in the kitchen, Peter comments on the amazing smell and asks if it's Brussels sprouts. Bonnie reveals she actually farted.
Something smells good in here. You cooking Brussels sprouts?
No, I just farted.
That checks out.
Then she takes a delicious dinner out of the oven, and Peter says it's the best thing he's ever eaten. Bonnie invites Peter to join her for dinner since Joe is in Tokaya. Peter decides to text Lois, saying he'll be working late and she shouldn't wait for dinner. Then he sits down to eat with Bonnie. At school, Stewie feels down, waiting to know if his test is negative or positive. However, his doctor doesn't give him a very cheerful expression. After a long talk, Stewie finds out the test was positive for lice. Desperate and shocked, he expresses his distress, considering the news terrible. His doctor then suggests that Stewie get his affairs in order.
Test positive for cooties.
What? That's terrible!
Well, then you're ready to die.
Back at the Griffin house, Stewie is in the garden, tending to plants while singing. Brian walks by and asks if Stewie said something to him. Stewie responds that when someone is so close to death, their whole perspective changes. Stewie's nurse, who looks about 20, arrives and hands Stewie a bag of medicine. The nurse kisses Stewie on the head multiple times, emotionally saying that Stewie takes great care of him.
My father never loved me, but Stewie, he take good care of.
Brian asks Stewie if he's not being too dramatic about the lice situation. Stewie shows that the medicine jar is what keeps him alive, explaining that it's not drama. Brian, however, still thinks Stewie is overreacting. At the dinner table, while everyone is eating peacefully, Peter is the only one looking sad. Lois asks why he doesn't have an appetite, and Peter responds by asking Lois to be quiet, because he just needs to focus to get his appetite back. However, while lost in his imagination, he accidentally says the name Bonnie.
Better, Bonnie.
Did you just call me Bonnie?
No! God, no!
Lois and Chris notice and start questioning Peter about why he said that. Peter tries to justify it by saying he was going to the bathroom to look at pictures of Russian food on his iPad and then would go to bed. In another scene, Brian is recording an autobiography for Stewie when Chris interrupts, saying he received a letter addressed to Stewie. When Stewie opens the letter, he finds out he'll have the chance to make his last wish come true, meeting the Philadelphia football team's mascot. named Gretchen. After that, Bonnie rings the doorbell at Peter's house and Lois offers to answer, but Peter quickly runs to the door saying he'll do it himself. When he gets outside and finds Bonnie holding a plate of stuffed pasta, Peter can't resist and agrees to eat right there. However, he asks her to make it quick, telling her to stand against the wall to avoid being seen. Then, seductively, he pushes her and devours the meal quickly.
Man, that smells good. Okay, fine, but we gotta do this quick, right here against the wall.
Next, Brian goes to Stewie's room to apologize for the previous night and says he'd also like to charge his phone. However, he is surprised by a reminder on Stewie's laptop screen, which says play. Brian decides to play the video and watches the clip prepared by Stewie. In the video, Stewie talks about how his illness has been a burden to those around him and that he decided to take a one-way bus trip. He mentions that in the closet, he is keeping a black suit for the funeral and another wool suit for Instagram stories. Brian, in disbelief, comments that this is all his fault for making Stewie think this way. Right after, the laptop automatically turns on, and Stewie appears, saying his last words to Brian, mentioning that he can keep the penis enlargement machine that's in his closet. When Brian goes to the closet, he finds a note that says, "You wanted it because you need it."
You can have my penis enlarging machine. It's in my closet. Did you look? Will you text me if you looked?
Next, Brian runs to the kitchen to talk to Chris and Meg, asking if they've seen Stewie anywhere. Chris says no, but suggests Brian check Stewie's Instagram post. There, Brian finds out he needs to go to Burlington to find Stewie. Meanwhile, Peter is again at Bonnie's dining table, enjoying a roasted turkey. Peter gets excited about the turkey's taste and exclaims it's the best he's ever had. But then they see Joe arriving in his police car through the window.
Looks like Joe's home early.
What? I ate most of his dinner? He's gonna be so pissed, I better hide.
Then Joe sits down and thanks Bonnie for chewing his food, making it easier for him. He takes off his shoes and asks his wife to turn on the foot fan. Peter then decides to text Joe, suggesting they meet at the bar. However, Joe curses Peter in front of Bonnie, calling him an idiot and complaining that he was being annoying by asking that at this time. Despite his anger, Joe leaves the table, giving Peter a chance to escape. Standing up, Peter tells Bonnie he will miss these moments with her and gives her a big hug, stroking her hair. Next, Brian is driving quickly on a highway, searching for his best friend, when he sees a sign saying, "Welcome to Vermont." People here are weirdly rich. Now having dinner with his family again, Peter says the dinner Lois made smells wonderful. But when he tastes it, he ironically gets emotional, saying what he is eating is beautiful and expresses his love for the meal. Lois is happy to hear Peter likes her cooking again. However, Peter desperately starts to reveal that he had no other food to enjoy, mentions Bonnie's name, and that he used to eat at her house. He then apologizes to Lois, suggesting the only way to fix his mistake is for them to have another child. Lois casually says it's okay that he did that, and adds that it was less food for her to prepare. Then we find ourselves in Burlington, at the hospital, where Stewie and his nurse are talking about Stewie's intentions for being there. Before Stewie can finish speaking, Brian interrupts and says he can't do this. Brian starts trying to convince Stewie to change the situation, making an emotional speech and apologizing. In the end, Stewie gives in to Brian's words and tells the nurse he doesn't want to go through with the procedure, revealing that his life has just begun. The episode ends with happy words coming from Stewie.